thing I'm gonna do is eat dinner when it's over. So it's kind of the end of my day too. It's probably one of my favorite parts of the day. So. All right, so I'm gonna pull you out 1 second, introduce the show. We'll go. Hello, friends. My name is Unica Walcott. I am the host of Career Conversations, and today's guest is special. She is going to be the first guest for 2022, and her name is Chandrika D, and she is an ordained reverend. Box one, right? She's an author and a wellness coach. And so today we're going to talk about her book, and I'm going to let her introduce herself and the title because I want you all to hear it from her. It is going to make you go, huh? What? My sister was like, girl. So no, you guys got to stick with it. You gotta know what's going on here. Don't judge, listen and learn. All right, so welcome Chandrika to the show.
Lord, I don't want to die a Christian. That is the title of my book, and thank you for having me. It is definitely a privilege to know that I'm the first interview of the year. And just to talk. I'm not having this conversation with a lot of us. So when I do get that let's talk, I'm very excited. I'm a wellness coach. I was ordained years ago. I have a degree in biblical studies that I pursued before having an opportunity to go and live in China. I did a 2-year contract teaching in China and doing missions work, planted a church in China. And when I came back to the States, ain't no one there no more.
I'm just looking at like, wait, you planted a church in another country, but then wrote a book, Lord, I don't want to die a Christian.
Right.
Can you tell me how you came up with the title?
I left the States being gung-ho ministry. As a matter of fact, I was full-time ministry for free when I left the States to go to China. And so my goal was to go to China to change China, a whole country. I was going to make China Christians. And
whole country, very densely populated, mind you.
Listen, and I was going, as far as I knew, I was only going for 1 year. So how I was going to change China, all of China. But, I guess I had in my mind that if I could teach a generation, then they could, then teach their family and then generations to come. And so, that was just my theme, my thought, my desire was to go and change China. And, I got there. And my students, some of them wanted to kind of really know who I was and what I was about. And they were also learning English. So one of the best ways to do that was to go through Bible with them. So they wanted to know who I was and what I was about. And I was about ministry and all of those things. And so we chose to go through the book of Luke, and it took us 2 years. And if you kind of, walk through that journey with me, when I say planted a church, I don't mean a building or a congregation, but in every sense of the word of assembly or assembling or a called out group of people, or just as we do it, but more so, or just as Christianity does it here in Western countries. But just really the difference is I didn't have a building. I didn't put my students in the building. We met in my apartment for 2 years. So that was, in a sense, a church plant. They even gave themselves a name. And so, they named themselves. I have it in the book. I can't think of it at the moment. But I was shocked that they came to me with the name. And so that for me even solidified, this is really a church gathering. This is really a group of kids or students who have set themselves apart from their peers. So I planted a church in China, and I came back to the States. Um, and I went back to church, and uh, my perspective, perception, experience of God had been expanded, and I couldn't fit the expansion in American Western uh, religion, as I've always experienced it. So I was really struggling with adjusting to what I had done prior to going to China. I was really feeling a bit claustrophobic. Uh, I couldn't really breathe, and
So
so
you mentioned a little bit of specifics, like some of the practices like tithing and stuff in your books. What are some of the other things that didn't fit anymore?
it really, a lot of it was the lingo and the perception. So I even talk about the devil, and
Mm.
I had lived an entire year without hearing the devil, and it wasn't, that was a part of my culture shock experience, because it wasn't just that I didn't hear it, it was that I didn't even realize it. I had lived 1 year away, not realizing what I have heard all of my created life. Even if I was just in my mother's womb, she was going to church and hearing this, so I was hearing it in her womb. So whatever she was exposed to, even while I was in her belly, I was getting it. And so from the time of conception to my early 30s, I've been hearing about the devil. I go away 1 year and don't even realize it, that I hadn't heard about this devil. And so it made me go back to China my second year and try to figure out why these staples of Christianity that I had committed to were not present in my mind or my daily life. And that is, that therein lies the beginning, or a new level of expansion, because I really pressed into those questions. Why am I not hearing of the devil, and why is no one telling me it's first Sunday? Where is communion? And you know and so I was living in a world, in a building with probably 90-95% Christians, especially Western Christians. And nobody was mentioning these religious practices. And it made me have to ask questions. It made me have to dig to figure out, why are these things not existing, these practices not existent over here.
And so I want to dial it back a little bit because I don't want to assume all of my audience is a Christian background or familiarity. Can you explain what tithing is and what communion is?
So tithing is a giving of a 10% these days of your earnings. And so in some cases, there are people, I was even raised to tithe my gross because it's what I
Mm-hmm.
earn versus what
But
I.
I was raised Baptist. That's how we did it too.
Right, right.
Like you
So
don't take nothing from God. Uncle Sam ain't got nothing to do with it.
right, right. And so every check or every earning, you are instructed to tithe that 10%. 10% of that. That's what tithe means. It means 10. And so
Give that
or
money to church.
yes. And communion is a ceremony. And the
Mhm.
ceremony is it basically a moment or time to remember Jesus's death by eating a cracker and drinking um, perhaps grape juice or wine.
Mhm.
Jesus is sitting at a table, enjoying, if you will, the last feast of unleavened bread that he would enjoy with his disciples. And he says, "Do this in remembrance of me." And it seems that the church or Christianity has taken that last moment or that last festival Jesus participates in and makes it now a ceremony. And it's, in the Black church, for sure, it's once a month It's called First Sunday, you
Yeah.
know, that which didn't exist. I mean, to be in China and realize that there is no such thing as First Sunday. You know what I mean? There's a first Sunday of the month, but it First Sunday was a real like thing, almost tangible in our Christian tradition. It's a thing apart from every other Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so,
I do.
it was to know that I had lived just 1 year without that Sunday was mind blowing. I thought I was going to hell
Okay, well, now you got to explain to me why you thought you were going to hell.
because these things were so real. They were so real, and now I have not been participating in them anymore. I literally asked God, if I've not been doing those things, what have I been doing?
Hmm.
What have I been doing if I've not been doing that? Because that was life. That Christianity and Black church and the expression thereof, particularly in the Pentecostal or charismatic movement.
Yeah, the
Listen, that, that
Kojic. Yeah.
that's right,
Church of
Kojic
God in
is
Christ.
right, Church of God in Christ. And so that was my culture. Even though, so there's American culture, there's Western culture, and then there's the hood culture, and then there's the all of these subcultures. Well, my subculture of Western culture is church. That was my
Yeah. I
world.
mean,
I
so much
didn't
so
even
we've got things like church girls and PKs or pastors' kids. Like, there's a whole lexicon associated with like church.
yes. And so, but the funny thing is I did not know that it was a subculture for me until I
Hmm.
left it. Until I left it, came back to it, was like, oh, this has always been, your world is your culture, your personal culture. There's a culture in my home. You know what I mean? And
Yes.
so, a crazy culture, as one of my friends came to visit, of being, she called abnormally neat. That's the culture in my home. If that is a thing, but from her observation, everything is where it is, and so there's a personal culture, there's a family culture, and there's a work culture. So my culture was church. It was the priority. Ministry was the priority in my life.
And I hear you say was the priority in my life. So was there a marked point when this changed for you? And what did that look like?
It changed for me once I got back. And I think I remember, going back to it and just feeling like the walls were closing in on me. Because of, I think I talk about in the book, the language, the devil in your life. And I literally could hear the sound of tithe envelopes. What? You know,
It's
literally
such a part of your culture. It's the same way with like you go in certain buildings, you expect them to smell a certain way. Like the whole
right,
sensory experience, like as a part of what ingrains it in you.
right. And it just, now my senses are wild, aware, and open. And those offering envelopes started, and tithe envelopes started moving. I was like, ooh, what is that? It was like, oh my God. And so, um, you know, just it just didn't fit anymore. I mean, I lived in China. I had gone to do ministry in Hong Kong for 2.5 months, and I didn't have access to, in most cases, to how we've done it here. In Hong
Hmm.
Kong, there was, some American church there, but still, I had spent most of my time in China. And understanding, even when I was in Hong Kong, and somewhat enjoying what was familiar, I didn't go a lot, and I understood that Western culture had come to China, had come to
Hmm.
Hong Kong, but it didn't originate there. It's Christianity trying to take over the world, if you will.
Yeah.
So, um, so it just, I couldn't, I had to, I knew at some point standing in church that I can't do this. And not to say that I stopped going then, but I started making changes. I literally went and bought a bike from Walmart, a bicycle. I all I could think of was that I could not breathe. And so I went and bought a bike so that I could I felt like the expansion of God that I had experienced was not bigger than outdoors.
Hmm.
There was no walls outside, there were no ceilings, there were no boundaries. It feels still today limitless, boundless, and I knew that my expansion, how I perceived God, could fit outdoors. So I went and bought a bike. And that began the I would literally go cycling that morning and then come back and go to church. I could do that.
Mm.
Um, but after a while I started, doing other things. It was like, well, I like this cycling thing, and then it turned into becoming a triathlete, and then that turned into hiking, and then that turned into kayaking, and it just my curiosity to learn other things and participate in other things and experience the expression of God in as many ways as possible became my life.
To experience the expression of God in as many ways as possible. What does that mean to you? Like, can you elaborate a little bit for me?
Well, I do believe what David wrote, or his revelation, if you will, that the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, and they that dwell therein. And so I think that every culture, every person, every animal, every leaf, every wind, um, you know, every art. Um, there are so many, every cloud, the sun, one of my favorite things, to hike and just let the sun hit my face, the moon, the stars, the installations, the world above, the world beneath. I believe it's all an expression of who I believe God to be. And so, the food, the what grows, what we can see, what we can't see. It's to me all a reflection of God. You name it, breath even. I was talking to someone the other day about how in a lot of oftentimes Christians are seeking to experience the glory of God, and but we'll pass up waking up your child, and the baby turning over saying good morning, and blinking, and therein lies the glory of God and you experiencing it. you know we'll pass all that up as God's glory, trying to get to God's glory. And so,
Mm.
it's in the leaves, it's in the air, the wind. One of the reasons I
The
love
sounds of the voices of the people you love.
yeah, yeah. One of the reasons I love cycling is I love to hear the wind in my ears. I feel like I hear the voice of God in it. I love to swim because I can hear the water in my ears. I feel like I can hear God talking to me through it. And so it's as much as possible, as much as I can be comfortable, I guess, because I'm still being, I'm still being stretched. Then I want to experience the love of God and the glory, or the expression of God, as many ways as I know how. I've gone to a mosque already. I did that after coming back from China, and I just sat there and watched and enjoyed so much the similarities, while I paid attention to the differences and didn't see anything that was not God. You
Hmm.
know, however, as a Christian, I've been taught that if they aren't Christian, you know what I mean? If they have not made this commitment to Jesus, then they aren't loved by God or accepted by God. And so I've been to a Jewish synagogue. Um, just to go and hang out and learn and see. These to me are expressions of God, and perhaps many attempts to reflect the expression of God. I think all of us are attempting to express the reflection of God, and we're doing our best. And sometimes it comes out as being Jewish, and it comes out as being Islamic, and it comes out as being Muslim, it comes out as being Sikh, and it comes out as being Christian, and it comes out, not one religion has all of the answers. So to learn and find out what people believe and why they believe what they believe is to also, the experience of God's expression, I think.
So you've decided to go on different adventures, and so you still identify as Christian, even though it seems maybe that church is not the place you feel at home.
I don't identify as Christian, and I don't feel that church is a place, you know, that I could be at home. I don't think Christianity is a place that I could be at home.
Hmm.
Um, Last I checked, a part of being Christian is offering to convert. It is seeking to convert. Remember, I said I went to China to change China. That's what I meant. I was
And
seeking.
China changed you.
I was seeking to convert, and that's just one of the things that even as a reverend, that was my job. What else was I doing it for? But to create more Christians. That's it. And so I don't want to do that anymore, and neither do I see the need to do it. I don't even know why it's necessary. And I asked the question in the book. I think one of my last entries is it's called "A God Like This," and my students name themselves the Family of Hope. And so,
Wow.
um, but I write an entry called "A God Like This" because I asked the question of Christianity and Christian parents: if you believe in a hell, why agree with God to be fruitful and multiply by having children?
Hmm.
Yeah. Um, if we believe they are God sent and they are already in heaven and God given, why believe, or why not leave them there where they are safe and saved, versus bringing them into the world, trusting their free will, their will to choose, at the risk of going to a place where they could, be tortured forever in eternity. Why agree with a God who would do that? Why
Hmm.
why would you agree to bring children into the world? And so the I think I asked in the book earlier in the book, I don't quite know what soul winning is, but then I kind of figure out it starts with me believing that you gave birth to a child that's broken,
Hmm.
right? That God sent your child into the world, a broken child, and it is my job to make sure that they are saved. I don't want to participate in that anymore. Just I don't want to do that anymore. So I don't identify as Christian for many reasons, but that's just one to give you an example.
So you're an author, an ordained reverend, and a wellness coach. But as an ordained reverend, you don't identify as Christian. Can you help me understand?
Well, I was ordained before I came to this point.
Ah,
Yeah,
gotcha. So that's a really crazy thing to unpack. Like I was ordained as a minister. I went to school to study this, and by going to China and realizing, that you were originally going with the intention of changing China and to convert people to Christianity, decided that this way of seeing and defining God no longer fits.
right.
What was your family's response to your change?
Great question. It's a great question. Well, let me say this. I'm the oldest of four girls,
Okay.
and um, So, and we're pastors' kids. We're preachers' kids.
Wow.
Oh yes.
I'm sorry. I'm just like, wow.
So we're preachers' kids. My grandparents were pastors. My dad's mom was what they called a missionary in the Kojic church. In essence, she was an orator. She was a preacher, but in the Church of God in Christ, there's no such thing as women preachers. They don't embrace it, at least. So
They
she was a
don't.
missionary. My mother's mom was the same. My mother's mom was what they called a national evangelist, and my dad, my mom was a missionary or an evangelist. My dad was a minister, and then they evolved into pastoring. They have a congregation, and so with my sisters, I can't say. Well, the book opens up with me telling my sister the title of the book, and she was like, what? She gasped. Well, what do you want to die as? And I was like, that's so interesting that I have to die as some religious affiliation, and so that was kind of her response. And she was fascinated, but I don't know if she knew what questions to ask, if to ask at all. But what I did know is that if everyone walked away from me, if anybody walked away as far as relationships was concerned, I knew my sisters was a safe place. I knew they weren't going anywhere.
Sisters, it's something like it's just this.
Yeah, one of them said, "I don't want to die Christian either." It's something like, girl, And so, but my parents, my dad didn't ask me, and I took the approach as I had conversations about the book before it was published. I always took the approach of if I'm asked the question, then I'll answer it. It was just a safe approach, only to find out, a lot of times Jesus did the same. He asked a question. He said nothing. He asked a question. Who among you have not sinned? And everybody threw their stones down.
You
You
can.
who've not sinned, cast the first stone, you know? And so in many cases, Jesus asked questions like, and so what about the husbands you got at home that really ain't yours? So, you know, asking questions, it seemed to be a little less confrontational. So I would only answer questions that I am asked. And my dad never asked me the title of the book. He knew I was writing it. We had that conversation, but he never asked me the title until he got word that I had signed a contract. Yeah.
Wow.
Because he's proud, you know, because
You write the book. That's a big deal. You're always proud of your children.
well, right. So, but it's just funny how it's a little more interesting now that I've signed a contract. So I shared with him the title, and he engaged me in conversation and wasn't angry, wasn't upset. He didn't quite understand it. He's still trying to understand it, and I applaud him for that. My mom has the book went number one new seller and was number 3 on the bestsellers list Amazon, and it went all over social media. My mom's on social media, and so I'm sure she caught wind of it. We've never talked about the success of it. I got a card a couple of weeks ago. She was telling me she was proud, and yeah, she's proud, but she is also ordained. She also went and got a degree in the same subject. She did that after I graduated from a Bible college university. So she went and pursued a degree, same thing, and I guess she has an opinion, but she's doing me a favor, and not she's not sharing her opinion, and that's a gift to me. So
No, I get it. There's some things that's like we're going to agree to disagree respectfully and just kind of just enjoy each other's company.
I mean, I think that's probably it. I will applaud them because I thought when I said yes to writing this book, we didn't get to the where the title came from, but when I said yes to writing this book, I said yes to losing all relationships except my sisters. I knew they weren't leaving. It wasn't that I wasn't willing to give up those relationships. I knew that they would be there. Every other relationship, every single one of them, I was saying yes to losing them.
What gave you the confidence to be okay with losing those relationships?
The conviction to write the book.
Hmm.
The conviction was so great that I asked God to let me live to see it published. Because
Wow.
I thought that when I finished, my body would not have been able to handle the completeness of it. The conviction was that heavy. So that when I finished it, now there's no more conviction. And I was not sure if my body could handle not carrying that. So I literally asked God, please let me live to see it published. I was finished. Can you just get me? Can you just get me to publish it?
Wow. So the moment you held your first copy in your hand, what was going through your mind? How were you feeling?
I finished. That was it. I felt like I had been given an assignment and I turned it in. And um and I got an A for completing it. It wasn't I didn't necessarily have a party. I didn't cry. I just was happy that I finished it. That I walked out the courage to write it, to say it, to announce it. That's it. Just I was just glad I finished it. I was like, okay, so now I can go outside and play. You know how you finish your assignment, and just like I turned it in, and now I can go play. And it was that. I'll say a few days after holding it in my hand, I was getting ready to walk out the door. I put my purse on my shoulder, and my purse at that time was a bit raggedy, and I said out loud, or did I say it out loud? Or in my mind, I said, I should buy myself a purse for my birthday. Mm-hmm. Well, the book came out in November 30th. My birthday is October 25th. And so what that said to me is that I had given birth to another experience of freedom. Mm. And so that was a few days after holding, the book in my hand. Other than that, I just felt I was happy about completing it because it took a lot of courage. I mean, some of the entries were painful to write because I had to come to some painful realizations, and some of them was the conviction was so heavy that it was painful in my body. So I remember writing a need, a tree, and a choice, and I was in such pain, like the heaviness of it or the weight of the realization was so painful that I called a senior person in my life just to confirm that I knew what I had known. I've read everything I've read. I've studied everything I've studied. I have a Bible degree, and this is what they've been teaching us in church. I'm 47 years old, 40 at the time, 45, 46, somewhere in there. And I'm like, surely I'm missing this. Like
where is it in the scripture?
Right. Like, or why hasn't anyone else asked this question? And when I asked her that, her coming from the Pentecostal background or a charismatic background, but being senior, and being qualified, she has her minister's license. She's an educator. Is this what they taught us? Yes. Well, why hasn't anyone else asked this question? I remember crying. And she said, because God gave it to you to ask. I mean, okay. It was like, and it didn't make me feel any better. I was like, thanks, click.
She said, thanks. Oh my gosh. We talked about the conviction you experienced and how it was like this weight you carried. When did it hit you that you needed to write this book?
Um, so we can now, I guess, go back to the day that I realized I was to write the book. Again, I was adjusting, hadn't gotten a bike yet, adjusting to Western religious practice, Black church, and I was really struggling with that. And then Barack Obama had been nominated, and so a lot of our evangelical brothers and sisters, evangelical meaning our white brothers and sisters, in a lot of cases, that's what it means. And so they were really having a hard time with having a Black president, and they were being expressive about it, via social media, the news, uh, in their churches, in their conversations. And one day I was watching the news and I watched a pastor invite his grandson up to the pulpit to sing a racist song about having a Black president. And this was being showcased on CNN, and I was done.
Oh,
I
honey,
was
I missed it. Can you like send me the article? Because I'm like,
it was so
when did this
many it was so many years ago. I mean, this was literally at the helm of the nomination. Like, I do solemnly swear, that's where we were.
Wow.
Yeah. And so he had to be elementary. He goes up these steps and sits on the top step and sings the song. And I was over it. I couldn't even watch it. I turned the TV off. I couldn't watch the rest of it. I turned the TV off and I decided to start cleaning my apartment. I walked to my front door to pick up some shoes that I had kicked off on the way in. And when I stood, I exhaled, Lord, I don't want to die a Christian. And I took one step forward and said, that's a book. I took another step forward and said out loud, I wasn't intending to write a book. Never. I wasn't intended to write a book. It was never something I wanted
to write a book.
No, never. It was never something I decided to do. I will tell you though, years prior to moving away from Oklahoma, I'd been at Langston University, and I was taking a break between classes, laid down to take a nap, and at somewhere between laying down and being conscious and unconscious, I heard the words, "If you let Ezra carry you." Ezra is a book of the Bible, and so I had to figure out what that was. No Bible school yet, and so I had to figure out what that was, and I learned that Ezra was a studied scribe. He studied the law of Moses, and he was a writer. And when I decided what I believed that to mean, which was to go to Bible college, I packed up my things and went back to Oklahoma City and got an apartment and enrolled in Bible college. But at the time, I just thought I was going to study the law or study the Bible. I never thought I would write a book. It didn't even occur to me. I heard study uh, the law, and I guess I heard preaching because that's all I'd ever known. So
That's an interesting point you make, because a lot of people, I feel like when they think about this idea of a calling or a
mhm,
purpose specifically from God, a lot of people instantaneously think they're supposed to be like a preacher or an evangelist or one of these more traditional roles.
yes,
Um, and and the more I talk to different people of different faiths and perspectives about Christianity specifically, I think one of my guests kind of backstage conversation, she said, sometimes your job isn't necessarily where your ministry is. A lot of people think, okay, well, I got to go do this or that. It's not how it always works out.
right.
So it's really, really interesting you share that you thought that that's what it meant, and then so
Mhm.
what does it evolve for in terms of your understanding?
Well, I'm still I'm still good at least conversation and articulating, and I'm willing to share, in a preaching role or declarative role, but I more so enjoy having a conversation. Um, and of course, everything is open at this point. How else, God, do you want to express yourself through or as this person, Chandrika? How else do you want to do it? My next presentation won't even be words. I see words in picture, and so this new concept I want to express, I can't see the words. And, it took me 12, 13 years to write this book. And so my mind is set on how do I write this new concept? And when I can't see the words, I believe I heard the Lord say to me, don't have to be words this time. So I'm looking to illustrate versus for words necessarily. I think it'll be easier for me to to create characters and then give those characters words than it is for me to write it. And it was just like, duh, you've been seeing words in picture all this time. It's how I've written. And so now it's just like, it's okay to stop at pictures. You don't have to make them words.
Hmm.
So it's just whatever else is next. How else, God? How else do you want to?
Yeah, so we talked about how you kind of shifted from being a minister in terms of the traditional sense
Mm-hmm.
and going on mission trips and things to kind of really living in an expression of God that
Mm-hmm.
is truly unique to who you are and connected very much directly to like who God says you are to you,
Yes, it's good.
if I'm understanding you.
That's
And
good.
so, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I didn't have a wannabe, and I don't know. Are you surprised? I don't know.
No,
I
no,
don't.
that's fine. Like I've talked to so many people. Some people like I don't know what I want to be. Some people say I changed my mind 10 times. I
Right.
still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. Like,
She said, "Cause she said I still got to grow up."
yep.
But there weren't a lot of examples about what to be outside of the church. My mom's a minister's wife at the time we were growing up. Not to say that she didn't work. She worked at the bank or a loan place or whatever, but that didn't necessarily come home with her. What came home with her, what her passion was, is what she does today, ministry. We were. I mentioned this the other day. My dad recently, not too long ago, reminded me that as children, she would play scripture on cassette tape when we went to sleep. We had
Wow.
to learn the books of the Bible. I know the books of the Bible today, all 66 of them, and it's not because I graduated with a degree in biblical studies.
No, it's
We
because your mama sent you to Sunday school every Sunday,
and
made you recite it.
she made us learn it. She made us learn it at home. And so, we were singers at church. We were called the anointed and appointed fee sisters. And so, that was our world. And so if I wanted to be anything, and I don't remember thinking it's what I wanted to be, it was how will I be what I see. That's really good. Now that's good.
And you know what? I love that you're saying that because honestly, that is why I'm hosting this show. People go, "What are you doing? Who are you talking to?" I was like, "I'm talking to a variety of people, whether it's PhDs or people that said I ain't ever going to college." Well, that's not. I want people to have the idea that it's okay not to do things by the rules in this super official fashion. In fact, the reality is most of us don't
Mm-hmm.
because it don't work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It don't work for most of us. And so
Right.
I want to invite people to see so many ways of being and have access to mentors and people who have been where they're trying to go. Like you said, I was trying to be what I could see. So
That's it. How
if
was
I,
I
if I can
you?
see Chandrika, if I can see Unica, if I can see, Bob, Alice, Zoe, everybody, I want you to have access to these people. So I've had people ask me, hey, why don't you interview a celebrity or really help your show grow? I said, because that is not a part of my why.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's just
Mm-hmm.
not, it's not a part of the why. And I'm not saying you're unwelcome here, but what I'm saying is that my purpose is so much bigger than your celebrity. I don't want anybody to take credit for what is about to happen.
Right, right,
We go, oh,
right.
this blew up because Kim K showed up. Nobody cares.
Okay. I really, the only thing I'd seen was church. So it, for me, it was maybe a matter of how am I going to be that? So which minister am I going to marry? What church are we going to pastor? Which, I had crushes on certain of my friends because I knew that they would be ministers, or they were practicing or talking like it or preaching, you know,
Mm-hmm.
whose wife was I going to be, and whose church were we going to pastor? And I can't say that I was always aware of that kind of thinking, but there was nothing else to think. So I dated the minister. I dated the deacon's son, and was what we you know which minister, how many kids, what house.
Right, like the whole like this is the standard and the pattern, so this is how we do things.
That's it, because we didn't see anything else. So we went to school, but the biggest part of our lives was church. I wrote in the book that there were some Sundays that we didn't go to church, honey. I was crying.
You were crying because you didn't go to church.
Honey, I snuck out to go to church. And no, I didn't sneak out. I snuck in from church. I knew that I knew that I was gonna be past my curfew. I knew it. I would take my pumps off and crawl through the window in a skirt,
Sneaking in from church.
sneaking in from church.
I
I
have no words.
I
Like,
wanted to be a part of and do it so badly that, and I didn't have a car. So I had to go with my friends, and my friends didn't have the same curfew I had. We
you have to be home at like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock.
12. And the thing, 12 wasn't late enough, especially being a singer and a musician.
Oh
So,
no, it's not, because you got set up, breakdown, practice, all of those things.
right. I mean, we talk about concerts, though. We're talking about doing concerts, being a part of them. You talk about midnight musicals, perhaps that start at 10, but they gonna go. And then after that, we got to go eat.
You have to. Like, it's a part of like musician culture. If you don't all sit down and eat and be like, how's the performance go? How are your kids? Like, that's just how it goes.
And did you see so and so? And look what she had on. And did you see so and so shouting? And girl, did you know that they was holding hands? All of the things. And so, yeah, I wanted to be a part so bad. I didn't want to miss anything. I would cry if we couldn't go. And I was willing to risk being in trouble enough to sneak in the house. I tell my sisters, open the window.
I'm like,
I don't know if my parents know that to this day. I don't know. My mom would probably. I
hope
nothing.
you don't, break out the belt at this point. Like,
Girl.
I'm teasing. Parents though.
Girl.
I'll be like, so they're like, I knew.
Girl. So yeah, I had to be a part of it. But again, I really lacked a lot of self-awareness for the same reason, just always in that bubble of church. And so I thought I would be those things, I guess. Again, I don't remember having that literal thought. I do remember having crushes on guys in church and just thinking, he's cute to marry and he a preacher, that kind of thing. But man, it turned out the complete opposite. And when I tell you that I am complete, I'm good. I'm good. I'm not married. I don't have any children, and I won't have any at this point. But if he comes, he comes. But he better be ready to carry all this completeness.
Love it. She said, I am complete. A lot of people think about marriage in terms of completing themselves. And it's like, if you're not a hole in a hole, you got a whole lot of mess. So
I was created complete, and there's nothing that has interrupted. If I believe in God, if I believe that God created me in his image and in his likeness, then I was created complete. And that's never changed. It's if you have children, you know, you understand what it is to look at your child and not see them any different from the time they were born till now, despite the stupidity, the dumb decisions, or the disobedience, or the not listening, or believing they know it all. Your perspective of them has not changed. And so if I was created in the perspective, I never said this before, this is really good, in the perspective of God, in how he sees himself, itself, herself, themselves, however you define it.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, then if I am seeing through the eyes of God myself, that I've never not been complete. I've always been complete. So even when I don't feel like it, I am.
And
Even
that
when the world around me, you know, what I'm producing, or what is reflecting me in the moment, it doesn't change how God sees me. And if I prioritize how God sees me, I am complete.
I feel like a lot of people need to hear that. A lot of
Yes,
people are getting up in the morning and chasing this idea of who they think they should be or what they should be doing to be when they already are.
already are. I
Pardon
was
my grammar. You
I am what I are. Write that down. And so,
were,
yeah, I was communicating with a friend earlier about um, uh, fullness, and I said, I am not full today, but my awareness of my fullness is very high today. So I don't want to limit the experience of fullness to today. That's not it. I came here full. So my it's just that my awareness is keenly focused on that today. And because my awareness is keenly focused on my fullness, I'm expressing it now. I'm expressing it via this text message, or I can sense it in my body. I actually feel it in my body versus, I'm so full today. Well, then your experience of fullness is limited to today. But if I arrived into this world full, and again, that has not been interrupted from the perspective of God, then I am full, period. And then, but today there's a very keen sense of awareness of that reality.
that makes sense. It's like the like you said, there's the fact, and then there's the ability to recognize it.
I love us. I love us.
I'm enjoying myself so much. So, in a lot of ways, I think a lot of people will see you as a rebel. What
Absolutely.
advice do you have to people who are tinkering with the idea of stepping out of the known culture, the things that they've been steeped in for 10, 20, 30 years of their life, and experiencing life in a new way? What is your advice?
Um, I write about being a rebel. I think my first advice is to look up the definition. I actually wrote an entry in the book called By Definition, where I had been identified by a local pastor here in Columbus, Georgia, as a rebel, as one who has a rebellious spirit, needing to be purged. Uh, let's
Okay.
let's be clear about that. I needed to be delivered with a T. And
My
so,
period.
right, right, right. And so, for a long time, I was really struggling with that. Like, God, I don't mean to be. I'm just curious, or I have a question, or I just don't understand, or whatever. And I went to China. First year, I might have been the first 2 weeks in China. I was inspired to look up the word. And
Hmm.
I was like, oh, this is not a bad thing, even though it's in her intent was to label me negatively, but it there's no negative connotation in the definition. So by definition, it is true. Thank you. You know, accept the compliment that um that somebody is identifying your ability to be different. And in most cases, those who label you a rebel have the opposite eye. That's why they are able to do that. They don't have the same courage. You know, what rebels around going around calling another person a rebel? We are not.
Usually no.
No.
And I've been called a rebel, so I get it. Usually those
So
are not. Usually
right,
not people call me that. I think the only person that's probably said that that's probably also a rebel is my husband.
right. So, and normally we don't have to be, identified by another rebel to, to accept that part of us. It's what I'm learning is particularly the person who identified me as that is one who lacks the courage I have, who lacks the same audacity. So, in order to actually say those words about me, it's because you actually see it. I'm in most cases, I'm thinking a rebel don't see a rebel. We just rebels. You know, you just you kind of
Coexist.
right. You just kind of find each other and you just be who you are versus, the people who are deeming you a rebel are the people who are not that. So enjoy it, accept it as a compliment. Go ahead and step out and be, as I say, named among the greats. Martin Luther King was a rebel. Uh, you know, um,
Jesus.
I was gonna say I write that Jesus was a rebel.
By
He-
standards of his time, absolutely. But people don't want to talk about that.
right. He was absolutely a rebel. He was one who did not want to and had no desire to step in line with the mundane, the everyday way of being treated and seeing his people treated less than who he saw them to be. Jesus was he was listen, he was gonna get killed and he knew it.
Oh my gosh, she said, and he knew it. I feel
And
like
he
every
knew it.
day.
He knew because the culture of the day was to to get rid of any agenda,
Opposition.
yeah, did not line up with the most popular, i.e. today, still today. And so they got rid of Martin Luther King because his agenda didn't line up with the most popular, whomever got rid of him, and so the assassination is the same. It just looked different. Martin Luther King was shot, Jesus was hung. Malcolm X was shot, Jesus was hung. And so and we could go on and on down the list of people who, if they weren't shot, it was something else. It was for me, don't come back to our church.
Oh,
Because
people told you don't come back to their church.
not this is not since the book, but I came back from China asking questions about, and what's crazy is it wasn't about, morality. It wasn't about who's sleeping with who, where the money going. It was quote unquote theological or biblical questions. And so it was, don't come back to our church because what you doing is a distraction. It was coming to church with not dressed up on a Sunday morning because I had just finished riding my bike while everybody else was dressed up. No, don't get me wrong. I wasn't walking up to the front. I was standing in the
But
back.
even so, there's so many references that instruct you to come as you are. And it's one thing to come kind of sweaty. It's another to come kind of naked. I don't understand the issue.
Literally, I had bike shorts, and I would keep a pair of, because you can see through bike shorts. You're not supposed to, you're just supposed to wear them chilling. And so, I would put sweatpants on. Not even sweatpants, like just a pair of wind pants or something, windbreakers on top of that. And I would put on some tennis shoes and a t-shirt or a long sleeve top and go in. but I was different from everybody else. And it was, I wasn't taking communion. I would pass up the communion plate and they noticed. I wouldn't participate because I didn't understand why we did it. After, reading what I read and coming to my own conclusion, I'm getting hollered at about that.
Hmm.
So yeah, it doesn't look the same anymore, but it's for the same reason. You don't line up and you're being vocal about your the difference, your difference in belief. And so you got to go.
Here's a question for you. So we've talked about your whole experience and not being welcome to church and kind of coming to this place of like accepting that you're going to write this book, and kind of even the idea of like that transition from like being the girl who snuck out the church is a huge difference. How have you come to a place of reconciling the idea when you said, I felt like I was going to hell? Do you still feel that way? And um,
Go ahead.
I think I know the answer to this question, but I'd like for you to share.
Hell no.
I don't like to assume. I like to ask questions. And then how did you get to a place of releasing that fear and that feeling? Like, what was the transition point for you?
Um, in the book I write a entry called Unlisted, and I asked the question: if hell is real, why isn't it listed amongst the places created in the beginning? Um, I think I have the same question about heaven in that, um, and I write about that too. I think close to the end of the book, I write an entry called Confirmation. Nobody who has, gone to this place of flames for eternity has written a book, written a letter, whether it be hell or heaven. You got any confirmation that they exist? Right. I didn't either. So, it's really more so a few things, but it's more so, whether I believe it or not, I don't know. And I'm okay with not knowing. That's number one. Number two, not believing in hell does not change the experience of doing right by people.
Hmm.
It doesn't change that. It doesn't change the feeling that comes with being integral. It doesn't change the experience that comes with being authentic and truthful. It doesn't change that. So one of my favorites says when people ask him, well, that does that mean I can do whatever I want to do? He said, well, what is it do you want to that you want to do? Uh-huh. See what I'm saying? So, you know what I mean? So when you've decided, that you want to love your neighbor as you love yourself, no matter what, it doesn't matter that there's a consequence for the opposite or not a consequence.
There's no choice but to love.
That's it. That's my only choice. And so it doesn't matter that there is or is not a hell. It doesn't change the experience of goodness, the experience of expressing goodness, not being good, but let me say this: not uh, uh, doing good, but being good, existing as good. And so if we have decided, that when God looked at all he made and said it was good, it's if we've decided that includes us being goodness, then most everything you do that other people will experience, even if you've done it wrong, the purity of behind it will be impactful. I taught my kids for 2 years. I went through the book of Luke for 2 years. And I wish I had done something different. But because my heart was pure, I do. Because my heart was pure, the impact was no less. They still felt loved. But if I had my rathers, if I could go back and do it different, I would have learned who they were, learned who they believed themselves to be, and empowered them to be that. That's what I would have done.
Wow. I like that you shared your regrets, and then you talk about a moment in your book where you regret not sharing something, instead giving a young woman advice about marriage. And it
Mm.
just sat with me because I've had my own rounds of marriage. I mean, it's my first marriage, but but at one point, like I dated a PK, bought my own engagement ring. Girl, it's a terrible story.
We got to think about that.
We'll talk about that one in a later date. But like
Yes.
just to talk about my own journey, like so I was like, I get it. Like having that moment of like, if I had really shared this part of myself and my journey with people, how much different would life be? And I was like, ooh,
How
like
much different would their life be? You know what I
yeah.
mean? And the thing, and she was, it wasn't her husband. She was dating a young man, and they'd broken up. And I went right to scripture. Such a Christian, you know.
She
It's
was
just
like,
like,
woman, my heart is broken.
right. And she took it because she was a blank slate. She just wanted hope from anything or anywhere, any reason not to feel the way she felt. But what was inauthentic was that I'd forgotten my own experience in an effort to be a Christian. That's what I went there to be. But I was just on the heels of a broken heart, my dadgum self, over a guy. I'll just say him. Them,
Oh my god.
you
It's
know,
like
and
that.
you know what I mean? And so, I mean, my heart was broken. I had been engaged and had to make a decision not to go further. And like literally, it's the reason I was open to go to China. The reason I was open to go is because I had just broken up with him. And sometimes what we do, crazy stuff, go cut our hair, go get a tattoo, uh, go to another country.
Escape the feeling of the moment.
Right.
Any
I
way
was
possible.
I was open. I just was open. It was my focus had been so much on becoming a family with this guy that when it was not gonna happen, it was just like, what next? And when the opportunity came to me, I went and forgot all about how my heart was broken in the moment that her heart was. Just,
Ah.
really busy being a Christian. And I'm sure she would have been more impacted, and I would have had more to give her, more tools to give her, to make it through than it was go and read about the virtuous woman,
In Proverbs 31.
which I write about in the book, which was a mother's dream for her son. I write, is that my mama's dream for me? I don't know. And trying, so busy trying to become that woman, that I missed that this was a woman's prayer or
For her
prophet
son.
for her son. It's a whole individual experience. And I didn't, I have, the Christian church has put it on me to be this woman. And men are looking for, I want my Proverb 31 woman.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And this what God wanted for me? Is this the expression of God that is Chandrika for me as a wife, as a woman? You know?
Look, I tell my husband all the time, I'm like, I thank God that you had different expectations for a wife, because otherwise I wouldn't be it.
Okay. And he gets to, this was, this young man's mother. She never shared that with him, thinking it would become a proverb.
Probably not.
Most likely she didn't. She's having a conversation with her son. Or
She's
or
like, we're sitting at the dinner table. I'm trying to give you some advice about how to choose a
right.
good wife.
Yes. Was she, my question was she this woman? Where did she get this from? Where did she this in where did this come from to inspire her? Is this from her? Was it passed down? We don't know any of that. We just trying to be. because it's in a book called Bible that is revered by millions.
Yeah.
So, you know, I wish I could go back and say, this is my story, sweetie. And I'm not over it yet. And it's going to be hard to get through. It's going to be hard to get through, but let's get through it together. Let's walk it out together. Instead, I sent her on to the, you know, just too busy
I feel
being.
like we have all done that at some point. For real. I'm the oldest of too many sisters. I tease, I don't really mean too many, but like my dad remarried. I got like 4 stepsisters and just so I'm like, yeah, I get it. I mean, I remember one time my sister came to me heartbroken. I think I told her breathe, stretch, shake, and let it go. So you do better than me.
Girl, I had that girl come back to me and what did you see? What did you read? You know, now, you know, there, you know, some of my friends lately have been losing parents and I don't know what to say. And I say, I don't know what to say. The Reverend, degreed, I don't know what to say. I am so sorry that you are feeling this pain and I will call you back to check on you. That's all I got.
I mean, sometimes that's enough. I mean, it really, grief is like such a unique and individual experience. You can never really know exactly what's the best thing to do. Sometimes you just show up and say, you know, if there's anything you need that I can do, or here's what I'm offering, you know,
Right.
pick the phone up, show up.
Well, you
I mean,
know, but at least as Christian, you know, there's supposed to be some kind of prayer. Like I don't even know what to pray. You know, I just want to love people in their process. Do you need me to go by the house? You know, one of my friends is in another city with her and struggling to leave after they buried her mom. You need me to go by the house? You know, I don't
um,
even have much of a prayer of God lift the spirit, lift the hung down head.
but,
Oh
but
God.
I really feel like whatever you pray is like, as long as you pray it from here, it's
Right,
enough. Like it
right.
just got to be sincere. Like that's
And,
it. And
well,
sometimes I tell God, look, I'm too dumb to know what to pray. Can you help us out? Like
right,
I got
right, right.
a problem.
But what I'm saying is I don't want to pray against or the opposite of where that person is.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. If they're sad, God, let them keep them until they aren't. Help me figure out how to support them. The prayer is more for me. You know what I mean? You know, it's
Mhm.
versus preaching them out of, you know, a feeling as they perhaps should. Allow them to feel all of it. You know, we can preach them happy and pray them happy. Woo, I feel so much better.
But you can't pray them healed.
Right.
Like just like in like the very moment, like it's a process in a lot of ways.
Right. And so every people can be wherever they want to be. Chandrika is saying, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to pray. I don't want to pray opposite of where you are. And so, in that wise, is there anything else I could do? I can listen. I can hold the phone. We can laugh. I can go and check on something, pick up something. But I have
Yeah.
no
Bring a
religious.
meal, whatever.
Yeah, right. But I have no really. If you unless you ask me to pray, and when you ask me to pray, I'm gonna still be like, okay, Lord, you know,
I mean,
give me how to pray.
it seems to me like you understand that there is a balance that needs to happen. That it's one thing to be religious and spiritual; it's another to forget that the practical matters. Or as my mom used to say to me, she said, "Don't be so heavily bound, you know, earthly good."
Right, right, right. That's right. That's kind of where I am, and just you know, just making sure to be sensitive to where to where people are. I think that is a greater expression of the love of God than always coming in for the rescue.
That makes sense.
coming
We
in.
have talked at length about a few things. Is there anything that I have not asked that you'd like to share?
No. You talk about where to get the book. And I
Yes.
post
Tell
that.
us where exactly we can get this book.
It's at Amazon, of course, Barnes and Nobles, Books a Millions, and a plethora of other places that aren't as popular.
You know what? Let's get it up real quick. Hold on. I like dropping links for people.
Mm-hmm.
So let's do that, and then people will know exactly where to go.
Yeah.
Lord, I don't want to die a Christian.
Lord.
Just a Lord. I don't.
I really want people to know that I literally said that. You know, there are a lot of folks who are struggling with the title, and they only see it's usually Christians. They only see, you don't want to die a Christian. That's not what I said. I said to the Lord. I said in my relationship, you know, that it's such that I trust God with said sentiment, that my relationship is such that I feel comfortable saying that which has your name on it, I don't want it.
So the book, Lord,
Yeah.
I Don't Want to Die a Christian. It's by
Yes.
Chandrika D. You
Yes.
can find it on Amazon. You can find it pretty much anywhere books are sold. Get your copy. It's really easy to read. It also has a journal component, so you can possibly make this part of your book club or process it with your church. It's an excellent conversation starter. Thank you so much, Chandrika, for being a part of the show.
Thank you for having me. It's awesome to be here. I love these conversations. I definitely love them with us.
Yeah. No, and I was like, my girlfriend told me about your book, and I said, girl, what? I said, you know what? Let me check it out. I was like, because I'm apt to be more curious and ask questions and make assumptions. And so
Yes.
I'm really glad we talked.
You know, on the back of the book, I say that the emittance of questions that I had rendered to me a choice: Christianity or curiosity. Open the book to see which one I chose.
And how she got there. You
Right.
might find yourself in there.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
All right. Thanks, y'all. Until next time, check out Career Conversations on